When someone pulls away in a relationship, the first instinct is often fear. The mind rushes to conclusions, painting pictures of betrayal, rejection, or a fading love. It's natural, because when you care deeply, even the smallest withdrawal can feel like a storm threatening to undo everything you've built together. Yet what is not often understood is that distance is not always a sign of disinterest. Many times it is not about the absence of love at all, but the overwhelming presence of it. When emotions run deep, when feelings begin to break down old walls and stir up hidden insecurities, it can push a person into retreat. Not because the love is gone, but because it is so intense that they don't yet know how to handle it. From an early age, people are taught to act strong, to remain in control, to show composure even in the face of uncertainty. Love, however, is the one force that challenges that control. It disarms, it exposes fears, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities that might have been carefully hidden away for years. For many men, the weight of these vulnerabilities feels unbearable. They aren't used to showing them, perhaps never taught how to put them into words. So when love starts to dig beneath the surface, they sometimes pull away, not as a rejection of the person they care for, but as a way of shielding themselves from the flood of feelings they do not know how to process. Imagine carrying a secret fear that you might not be enough. Maybe it is the fear of not being able to provide, not being able to meet expectations, or simply the fear of being truly seen with all flaws exposed. Now imagine being with someone who awakens feelings so strong that those fears roar louder than ever. Pulling away in this case is not an act of abandonment, it is an act of self-preservation. It is a pause, a retreat into a space where those emotions can be sorted out without the pressure of someone else's gaze. The mistake many people make is interpreting that retreat as proof of lost love. They see distance and immediately assume disinterest, when in reality, the retreat might be a storm within the heart, a battle between desire and fear. Distance becomes a way to regain balance, to breathe, to remember who they are outside of the overwhelming rush of love. It's rarely about wanting to escape the other person. It's about needing to stabilize themselves before they can fully step forward again. This is why patience becomes so important. Chasing during that moment of retreat often pushes the other person further away. Demanding answers, pressing for closeness, insisting on constant reassurance. These are natural reactions when you feel someone slipping away, but they can backfire. They add pressure to a moment when the other person is already struggling with pressure from within. What is needed instead is understanding, a recognition that distance can be temporary, and that it often reflects an inner struggle rather than an outer rejection. Distance can also be about identity. Love creates closeness, but it also challenges independence. For some, especially men, there is a deep, seated fear of losing individuality in the process of intimacy. Pulling away can be a subconscious way of testing whether they can remain themselves while still being deeply connected. It is not a withdrawal from the relationship, but a reminder to themselves that they exist as a whole person outside of it. That reminder can be necessary, because healthy love is not about merging into one indistinguishable identity. It is about two individuals choosing to walk side by side. Distance gives space for that individuality to breathe, ensuring that when they return as a stronger, more secure partner. The truth is, pulling away can even be a sign of respect. It may be the recognition that they need time to process rather than reacting in a way that could hurt the one they love. Instead of speaking words they don't mean or making promises they aren't ready to keep, they step back, reflect, and search for clarity. That pause, though painful in the moment, often prevents unnecessary damage. In a way, the distance is an effort to protect the connection, even if it feels like a threat to it. It is important to remember that every heart has its own language, its own way of expressing fear, hope, and longing. Some people articulate easily, others retreat into silence. When the person you love chooses silence and space, it doesn't necessarily mean their feelings are fading. It may simply mean that love has taken them to an emotional depth they are not used to navigating, and the only way they know to find balance is to pull back and gather themselves. The challenge, of course, lies in the waiting. When you love someone, waiting during their retreat can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, not knowing whether they will return or whether the silence will stretch on indefinitely. But the key is in observing the pattern. Someone who truly cares, someone who is invested, will always come back. Their retreat is not an ending but a pause. Their return is the proof that the love remains, and that return is often stronger, clearer, more intentional, because the distance has given them perspective. Understanding this truth shifts everything. It changes panic into patience, fear into trust. It allows you to hold onto yourself worth instead of questioning it every time distance arises. Because the distance was never about you not being enough. It was about them learning how to manage the intensity of their own emotions, how to navigate fears that existed long before you arrived in their life. When you can separate their inner battle from your own sense of value, you stop taking the retreat personally. You start to see it as part of their process, and you give space with confidence instead of fear. There is also a deeper truth in recognizing that love is not about constant presence. Love is about rhythm, the ebb and flow, the closeness and the space, the speaking and the silence. Just as the tide pulls back only to return with more strength, sometimes a heart needs distance before it can draw near again with greater certainty. If you can hold steady during those moments, if you can remain rooted in your worth and your trust, you will often find that the connection deepens rather than weakens over time. What is essential is the return. Distance alone does not define the relationship. It is the coming back that matters. If the person who pulls away always finds their way back, if they return with presence, with effort, with a desire to continue building, then their distance was never about leaving you behind. It was about finding the courage to love you better. That is the secret many do not speak about. The silence is not rejection. The retreat is not abandonment. The distance is not the end of love. It is simply a part of love's complex language, a sign that emotions are deep, perhaps deeper than words can capture. And though it feels unsettling in the moment, it is often proof that what is being felt is real enough, powerful enough, to shake the very foundations of what someone thought they knew about themselves. So the next time you see distance, do not rush to label it as disinterest. Look deeper. Understand the layers of fear, vulnerability, and self-reflection that may be driving it. Remember that distance can be a bridge to clarity, not a wall of rejection. And above all, never let someone's retreat make you forget your worth. Because when love is true, distance does not break it. It refines it. Love is often imagined as constant closeness, unbroken togetherness, and a bond so strong that two people never want to let go of each other's presence. The stories we grow up with, the movies we watch, and the songs we sing often paint love as an endless stream of togetherness, where absence feels like betrayal and silence feels like disconnection. But real love, the kind that lasts and sustains, is not built on endless proximity. It is built on balance. Love requires space to breathe. Without space, it suffocates. Without freedom, it loses its vitality. And without individuality, it becomes dependency rather than partnership. When two people come together, they bring with them their histories, their dreams, their insecurities, and their own sense of self. The connection that forms can be powerful, magnetic, and deeply fulfilling. But that connection cannot erase the need for individuality. Each person must still remain whole, still maintain their own identity, still nurture the parts of themselves that existed long before love appeared. This is not selfishness, it is necessity, because love cannot thrive if it consumes the very people it connects. Think of a flame. If you smother it with too much closeness, too much weight, it burns out. But if you give it air, space to breathe, it grows stronger, steadier, brighter. Relationships work in the same way. Constant pressure to always be together, to always talk, to always share every thought and every moment creates suffocation. It removes the air that love needs to expand naturally. Love cannot be demanded into growth, it must be allowed to flow freely. When a man pulls away, many interpret it as a sign that love is fading. But sometimes it is the opposite. Sometimes stepping back is a way of keeping the flame alive. It is a chance to breathe, to process, to return to the relationship with a renewed sense of clarity and energy. Without that space, the relationship can feel like a cage, and love is not meant to be a cage. Love is meant to be a choice, freely made every day, not a duty forced by constant proximity. Space is also vital for personal growth. Every individual is on a journey, not just of loving another person, but of becoming the best version of themselves. This requires reflection, solitude, and independence. When someone asks for space, it is often not about wanting distance from the one they love, but about needing closeness to themselves. It is about reconnecting with their own dreams, goals, and thoughts, so that they can return to the relationship with more to give, not less. The irony is that by allowing space, the relationship often deepens. By giving room for individuality, the bond between two people becomes stronger, because it is built on choice, not suffocation. Another important truth is that space builds trust. If you believe that love is only safe when monitored constantly, then you are not experiencing trust. You are experiencing control. Real trust allows space. It believes that even in absence, the connection remains. It believes that stepping back is not abandoning, but balancing. When trust exists, space is no longer frightening. It is understood as a natural rhythm of love. Just as the ocean tides rise and fall, closeness and distance ebb and flow in a relationship. Both are necessary, both are beautiful. It is in the moments of space that appreciation grows. Constant closeness can sometimes numb us to what we have. We forget the joy of missing someone, the sweetness of anticipation, the spark that comes from absence followed by presence. Distance, even small amounts, renews gratitude. It makes reunions meaningful. It reminds both people that love is not just about being there every second. It is about choosing to return again and again, no matter what. There is also a psychological truth at play. Human beings, regardless of gender, are wired with a need for autonomy. Even the most loving relationship cannot erase this fundamental need. When autonomy is denied, when space is not given, the natural reaction is resistance. People may begin to feel trapped, resentful, or suffocated. But when autonomy is respected, love flourishes, because love then becomes a choice, not an obligation. The freedom to step back creates the desire to step forward. The ability to be apart makes togetherness richer. One of the most powerful lessons to learn is that love is not proven by how much time is spent together. Love is proven by the consistency of choosing each other, despite the freedom to walk away. When a man takes space, it does not always mean he is walking away from love. It can mean he is walking deeper into himself, so that he can return stronger to the relationship. That return is what matters. That return is where the proof lies. So often, people make the mistake of filling every silence with fear. If there is space, they panic. If there is distance, they chase. This chasing, however, only increases the gap. Because love cannot be pulled by force, it can only be drawn by freedom. By understanding the role of space, by respecting the rhythm of closeness and distance, you shift from panic to patience. You no longer fear the pause because you recognize it as part of love's breathing. Consider how nature works. The seasons change, the tide flows in and out, the sun rises and sets. There is rhythm everywhere, and love follows the same pattern. Closeness is the rising sun, the high tide, the bloom of spring. Distance is the setting sun, the ebbing tide, the stillness of winter, but none of these mean the end. They are phases, cycles, necessary parts of the whole. Love requires this rhythm to remain alive. Too much of one without the other breaks the balance. Constant closeness can suffocate. Constant distance can disconnect. The harmony lies in both. Space also teaches patience and resilience. When you allow space, you are choosing to trust that the bond is strong enough to survive without constant proof. This builds a deeper kind of connection, one that is not fragile, one that does not crumble at the first sign of distance. Instead, it grows stronger because it has been tested and endured. Love that survives space is love that can survive storms. It is also worth remembering that giving space is not just for the other person, it is for yourself. When you allow distance, you also give yourself time to reflect, to nurture your own life, to reconnect with your own passions. A relationship is healthiest when both individuals continue to grow as individuals. When you respect space, you are also respecting your own journey. You are reminding yourself that you are not defined only by love, but also by your own identity. And in doing so, you become a better partner because you bring a stronger, more fulfilled version of yourself back into the relationship. Sometimes people confuse love with control. They believe that holding tighter will make someone stay, that monitoring every step will prevent them from leaving. But the truth is, control kills love. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away. Love thrives not in control, but in freedom. The paradox is that the more space you give, the stronger the bond becomes, because it is based on choice, not force. A man who feels free in love will choose to stay. A man who feels trapped may eventually run, not because he stopped loving, but because he could no longer breathe. So when distance appears, do not fear it. See it as part of the rhythm. When he steps back, understand that space is not the enemy of love. It is its ally. Space allows reflection. Space allows appreciation. Space allows growth. It is the silent force that prevents love from becoming suffocation. And when he returns, as he will if the love is real, the connection will be deeper, richer, more resilient than before. There comes a time in every relationship when you must face the question of value. Not the value of the other person, not the value of the bond, but your own value. Too often, people hand over their sense of worth, as though it were something to be decided by someone else's behavior, someone else's love, someone else's presence. When affection is given, they feel worthy. When affection is withdrawn, they question themselves. When someone pulls away, their first instinct is to wonder what they did wrong, what they are lacking, why they are not enough. But the truth is, self-worth is not something that can ever be negotiated. It cannot be given by another person, and it certainly cannot be taken away by their distance. A person's decision to pull back, to create space, or even to step away from a relationship is never a verdict on your worth. Their actions are reflections of their own journey, their fears, their limitations, and their choices. Yet so many allow themselves to crumble under the weight of that distance, as if one person's hesitation somehow defines their entire value. This is where the deepest mistake is made, believing that worth is conditional, believing that love must be begged for, believing that presence must be earned through sacrifice of self. In reality, the greatest act of love you can give yourself is to stand firm in the unshakable truth that your value is not up for debate. When someone pulls away, the temptation to chase can be overwhelming. The silence feels unbearable, and the mind spins stories of abandonment. Chasing seems like a solution, but it is an illusion. Because every step you take that abandons your dignity in pursuit of someone else only teaches them that your value is flexible, that your love will accept less than it deserves, that your worth can be bargained down. And love that is bargained is never love at all. It becomes survival. True love is not about proving yourself worthy of being chosen. It is about being met by someone who sees your worth clearly and chooses you without condition. Self-worth is the foundation of every strong relationship. Without it, you lean too heavily on the other person to define you. With it, you stand tall, knowing that whether they stay or go, whether they come closer or pull away, your identity remains whole. This wholeness is not arrogance, it is freedom. It is the freedom to love fully without fear of losing yourself. It is the freedom to give without collapsing. It is the freedom to walk away if the bond becomes toxic, knowing that leaving does not diminish you, it protects you. People often misunderstand self-worth as coldness, as if valuing yourself means shutting down or refusing to compromise. But valuing yourself is not about building walls, it is about setting standards. It is about knowing the difference between patience and self-betrayal, between love and dependency, between compromise and surrendering who you are. When you hold those standards, you protect the sacredness of your own heart. You remind yourself that your love is precious, your energy is valuable, and your time is not to be wasted on someone who cannot recognize it. In moments when a partner pulls away, insecurity whispers lies. It says that if you were more attractive, more successful, more interesting, or more perfect, they would stay close. But insecurity always distorts the truth. The reality is that pulling away is rarely about your shortcomings, it is about their battles. And even if there are challenges in the relationship that need to be addressed, abandoning your self-worth will never solve them. On the contrary, the more you forget your value, the less respect you inspire. The more you cling, the more you lose the very magnetism that drew love to you in the first place. Standing in your worth does not mean ignoring problems or refusing to adapt. It means addressing issues with strength rather than desperation. It means saying, I want this relationship, but not at the cost of my dignity. It means allowing space without collapsing into fear, because you know that your identity does not vanish in someone else's absence. It means trusting that if love is real, it will return, and if it does not, you are still whole enough to move forward. There is immense power in the way you carry yourself during moments of distance. If you panic, chase and beg, you confirm to the other person that they hold all the power, that your worth depends on their presence. But if you remain steady, respectful of the space yet confident in your value, you shift the energy completely. You show that while you may love deeply, you do not love at the expense of yourself, that confidence is magnetic. It speaks louder than words. It tells the other person that you are not afraid to lose them, because you know you cannot lose yourself. This is the paradox of love. The more you cling, the more it slips away. The more you stand in your worth, the more naturally it flows back to you. People are drawn to strength, not desperation. They are drawn to authenticity, not performance. They are drawn to partners who know their value, because that value inspires respect, admiration, and commitment. And even if the other person cannot rise to meet that standard, your worth remains untouched, unbroken, unshaken. Self-worth also determines the kind of love you accept. If you believe deep down that you are unworthy, you will settle for breadcrumbs, for inconsistency, for absence disguised as freedom. But if you know your value, you will not tolerate love that starves you. You will not accept half presence, half effort, or half commitment. You will know that you deserve a love that is steady, intentional, and whole. That knowledge protects you from wasting years chasing after someone who cannot meet you where you stand. There is courage required in holding on to your worth. It is not always easy. Fear will whisper that if you don't bend, if you don't chase, you might lose the person you love. But the truth is, if holding your worth causes someone to walk away, they were never truly yours to begin with. Because real love does not demand that you shrink to fit. Real love does not require that you betray yourself. Real love is drawn to strength, not to the sacrifice of it. This is why your worth must never be negotiable. It is the line you draw in the sand, the boundary that protects you from being consumed. It is the reminder that you are not just a participant in love. You are a whole being, deserving of respect, consistency, and devotion. Anyone who cannot recognize that is not a reflection of your inadequacy, but of their inability, and anyone who does recognize it will never ask you to beg, chase, or prove yourself. They will value you because you value yourself. The most beautiful part of embracing your worth is the peace it brings. Instead of living in constant anxiety over whether someone will stay, you begin to trust that whatever happens, you will remain whole. If they pull away and return, you are strong enough to welcome them with clarity. If they pull away and never return, you are strong enough to move forward without crumbling. Either way, you win, because your worth was never in their hands. So when distance comes, do not let it shake the foundation of who you are. Do not allow someone else's silence to silence your confidence. Do not let someone else's retreat convince you that you are less. Stand firm, stand tall, and remember that love may be a choice, but worth is not. Worth is eternal, unshakable, and completely independent of anyone else's ability to see it. And when you live from that truth, love no longer becomes a desperate search for validation. It becomes a shared journey between two whole people who know that even in distance, even in silence, their value remains untouchable.